this looks like an industry which is just taking off. And I was like, okay, even if I can get 10% of this industry, I'll be like very rich. It seemed like a logical step to say that, okay, let's not do an MBA, let's start a company.
And you're older than LinkedIn, I don't know.
You give whatever. There was zero money invested into the company. I don't even remember what I spoke, but I spoke. We used to play cricket.
Yeah, somebody called up our office and then they were asking like, is it patient? Sounds okay? Wait. That's my dialogue, man. Hello, welcome to the podcast. I'm Pradeep, host today, and we have our guest Karthik, who is a very good friend of mine and very well known in the IP fraternity. He's been active for, if I'm not wrong, about close to 20 years.
Yeah, Karthik? About 20 years now.
About 20 years it's been. And he's been into little entrepreneurship also. He's been active in outside the IP space also with a few other startup ventures, which he's involved in. More than that, he's very well known in the industry space with respect to whatever he has been contributing towards IP in India and helping a lot of startups, MSMEs and corporates get their portfolios aligned with respect to IP. And that's another tidbit about him is basically he's a very avid nature lover. He's been to a lot of Himalayan treks. Probably that's also quite a motivational thing for me, which I always wanted to do, but till date didn't do it. I hope I'll catch up with him some other time whenever he's doing it next time.
Sure, man.
Okay. So, how are you, Karthik?
I'm doing well. Thanks for the introduction. That was a fairly detailed introduction, I would say.
Thank you. There are a lot more details I would like to get into.
Sure.
Going forward.
Yeah.
But okay, the way I want to just frame this is I would like to talk to you few things. Although I know, I just want the viewers to know about this, how you enter this space when at a time, because I mean, as far as I know, when you started this, ventured into this space of patents, at that time, IP is not something which is very well known in India.
Right.
Maybe trademarks are known, but patents is not a niche where at least somebody would choose it as a conscious professional choice at that point. Right. So maybe if I would ask you to start with that, like saying, how did that journey happen, venturing into patents?
Right. So that's quite an interesting journey, actually. So essentially what happened was that I finished my engineering.
Yeah.
I did my engineering in a branch called as Industrial Engineering and Management.
That's pretty much like mechanical.
Which is pretty much like mechanical.
Yeah.
Right. So when I was pursuing my engineering, my idea was to actually venture into a different branch. Okay. And essentially my principal told me that if you do industrial engineering and management, you'd probably be in a position to actually venture into any field. It's only later that I realized that if you do industrial engineering, you will have to venture into another field because you'll not find any other job. Right. So that was the situation.
So he was not wrong actually.
Not wrong.
Yeah, it was totally
it's just that I did not understand it right back then. Right. So after I completed my engineering, that was in 2005. Even back then, everybody wanted to get into software. As such, I was more inclined towards finding some industry which is not very conventional. So I was on a lookout to see what kind of industries are out there, and I kind of happened to stumble upon this job opening from a company called Evalueserve. Yeah, right? They were based out of Gurgaon. I was in Bangalore. And I kind of started researching. I did not really think too much about it. Just looked like a different kind of a job opportunity. I applied for it. And later on, when they actually said that, okay, no, we would want to come down and interview you, that is when I kind of researching about this. And all I saw was that, this industry happens to be an industry which is going to grow in the future. I was naive enough to think that, okay, I read some article which said that, okay, this is going to be some thousands of crores of industries and all of that.
Wow,
so
nice.
I said, okay, fine, well, let me get into this. This looks like an industry which is just taking off. And I was like, okay, even if I can get 10% of this industry, I'll be like very rich, right? So that was like the basic motivation out there. And so that is how it happened, right? So Evalueserve, which was a pioneer in this industry, actually.
Yeah.
They were the guys who kind of started out this venture to say that we'll do the world's IP in India, and just out of sheer luck, I kind of happened to discover them. They happened to hire me, and that is how all of these things started in 2005 to begin with.
In 2005, you started your whole journey.
That's right.
Okay. I think in one way, you have been my motivation to land in Evalueserve. Actually, I have never known that company without you mentioning it.
Right.
At that point. But I mean, at that point when you have taken this leap into IP, also
Right.
into kind of a different city altogether, moving from Bangalore or down south to up north.
Correct.
There. I mean, without knowing much idea about this thing, and also not probably having any guidance, I'm assuming, like at that
Right.
point, right? I mean, there's not many people who are into that
True,
space at that point, right? So when that happened, how was your journey in the company, in the Evalueserve, probably the first company, whatever the stint you had there?
Right.
So how was the vibe there? I mean, because even the number of companies must be very low, I think. I'm not sure how was the space back then, like.
So in terms of number of companies which are operating in the space,
Yes.
I don't think there were like too many companies operating in the space. I mean, whoever was operating in the space, I think they were all traditional law firms. Apart from that, a new age patent consulting company as such, I think that they were probably the ones that people probably would have heard of. Otherwise, there weren't too many companies that were doing this, right? Evalueserve was able to build some, great work. They were able to build out some great people, and also, as a matter of fact, there are several companies in India today who actually worked in Evalueserve. Several of them are my friends who have kind of started their companies, and quite successful as well, right? So in the sense, when I started working there, right, I don't even remember how that time went by, because I just worked for a year's time over there. The whole idea was also to kind of gain some experience, and then see how I can probably come back to Bangalore and what could be done thereafter, right? So that was my thought process, that I go and get some experience.
Oh, you've been very clear about that.
Yeah, I was pretty clear about it.
It's not that you're going to stay for long. Or
No, I was kind of
Just want
pretty
to-
clear about it. And more so, I was also very thrilled that, okay, I've been with my parents for the entire life.
Oh, you wanted that.
Yeah, so
a
I
little
really
go
wanted
out
to
and
go
see
out
the-
and see what's
explore a
happening.
little
Yeah,
bit.
so from that point of view, I think it was quite a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I was kind of living by myself. We had a few roommates, had a lot of fun. So
I think a lot of learning also happens. apart
yeah, a
from
lot
this.
of learning apart from what we learned on about patents. A lot of other things.
Other life learnings.
Yeah, and then from there onwards, soon after, by the time I was about to complete my 1 year tenure, that was the initial aim. I kind of started looking out, and very easily, I think I found a job again in Bangalore. So that journey is that, I think, I don't remember whether I reached out or they reached out. So basically, it was a company called Brain League, which at that point in time was again a startup, right? So eventually, I ended up with Brain League, and I came back to Bangalore.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a stint. How from Evalueserve, I kind of came back to Bangalore and joined this company called Brain League.
So there you spent a little while and a lot of exposure to IP at that point. I mean,
Yeah. So that was nice. While the environment in Evalueserve is that there was an established company. They were very well organized, so to say, in terms of their size and all of that. But when I came back to Bangalore and joined Brain League, it was more of a startup. So that environment again was very, very different. Right, so you're working with, let's say, the initial team, the founders, so on and so forth, and you're trying to get more hustle. You're trying to get, let's say, projects. You're trying to convince clients. So that kind of gives you an insight into how companies are run, right? So that was the idea. So I kind of started working with Brain League. Then came a time to say that what do I do next? Wherein the idea was either pursue an MBA after gaining some experience or do some, venture of my own, right? So, if we are going to do an MBA, I said that, you are going to be spending 2 years and you are going to be spending certain amount of money. So you might as well start a company, right? Even, let's say you probably do that for 2 years.
Learn through
max,
the hustle.
Even if you were to fail in that venture, that's probably going to be equivalent of how much you would have spent on your MBA.
Right.
So it seemed like a logical step to say that, let's not do an MBA. Let's start a company, right? Because there is nothing much to lose. Right. So that is how, after working with Brain League for about 4 years, I decided that I'm going to be starting a company. And also I had this thing that I need to start a company by 26 or some. By the time I'm 26 years of age, and I was like almost hitting 26, I said that I kind of decided
deadline
the deadline was there. So I said I'm going to be putting my papers for sure, so that whatever I had thought of, saying that I think I was hitting 27. Right.
Okay.
So
you missed the deadline actually.
No. I should have started a company at 26.
Okay.
Almost about hit 27. So I said, I should resign by, when I'm still 26 and start a company. So that is how, I kind of resigned. And then, what kind of company? I thought that, since I have experience in the field, probably the best decision is to say that, let me start a patent consulting firm. So that is how, this entrepreneurship
I'm actually
journey
glad
started.
that you took that decision, and also it played out really well for us over the long time.
Yeah, it did.
Right? I mean, the decision of starting a venture over taking an MBA, it seems to be played out quite well. I mean, in the sense.
Yeah, I mean, you can, like your Steve Jobs say, you can always connect the dots,
backwards,
right? So it kind of, I would also say that it's, even if I were to pursue an MBA, go into a different field, maybe, what would have turned out over there could also be as good, or it might not be as good, but you never know.
So do you regret that?
No, definitely not.
Definitely not. Yeah, okay. No. So if you have not done that probably I would have not been in this field. Maybe, I don't know.
yeah, right. So a lot of things are connected.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So this thing of starting something was always there in you.
No,
right?
definitely.
You always wanted to do something.
That is for sure.
So whether it necessarily not have to be IP, but it could be anything. But you always wanted to do that.
Absolutely. That was like almost certain.
Always certain. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So once you started this journey, once you started Invntree, I think that's it. From day one it was called Invntree. So right. Okay. So once you started Invntree, so how was the initial hustle like? Because you have already exposed to some kind of a hustle with your previous before company in Bangalore.
Correct.
Right. So how was the start?
That's again interesting, right? So when I started, the initial thought process is that, at least for some time, I'm not going to be making any money.
Okay.
Right. So that was the initial thought process. The way it turned out was that, I kind of put out a LinkedIn post saying that, okay, I'm kind of moving on, starting my own company. And
LinkedIn was there back.
Even LinkedIn was there.
I
And
thought you're older than LinkedIn as well.
No. So it was there actually, right? It's been there for quite some time. So I did put up a post, and then somebody I knew from my previous work said that, okay, there is some startup event or something that's happening. So I'd not even formally started Invntree. So we said, okay, we are doing some kind of a startup event. They want somebody to come and speak on patents. Would you be willing to come? I said, okay, fine. So I kind of went there and gave us, I don't even remember what I spoke, but I spoke, right? So from there, somebody kind of approached saying that, okay, we want to get some patents done. And it was just one patent, right? So that was the first revenue that kind of came in. So
even before the company
was started.
announced.
So I can formally say that there was zero money invested into the company even before the company started. We had started making money, right?
Okay.
And then there were a few companies that I knew of from my previous work who again, because they were kind of comfortable working with me, they kind of came in and said that, okay, now we want you to be doing our work. So, the work kind of started coming in, but the quantum of work was not as much. I mean, if you remember, you joined Invntree
in 2012, I think.
Yeah, 11, 12 or something like that, right? So we had a small office, and then whenever we had work,
that was quite fun actually.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Never used to feel like actually work. I mean,
we used to play cricket.
Yeah, we used to work till late nights when we had work.
And, we used to come and work. That's all, right? So that is how things went by at that point in time. But one thing I think what we did right at that point in time is that somehow I had a realization that SEO is what is going to bring in work. So all the work was about, sitting and writing articles. Just writing articles or articles. So very soon, I think Invntree was ranking, almost
very good
the first page or first three links, hits, something like that. So initial work essentially was just about, people who, discovered us because of the content that was put in. And then they used to come and give us work. So that is how the initial journey started. And then I think the initial team was like, just a few people, me, Hemant, my brother, and a couple of them. And
Hemant is the co-founder.
Hemant is the co-founder. So Hemant comes from a civil engineering background. So even he was exploring, other fields. So I said, okay, now fine. Anyway, I'm also venturing in. Why don't you just come and join? We'll see how that plays out. So that is how even he ended up with Invntree from the very beginning at the time of incorporation itself. And initial few days we had a very small office. Whenever we either write articles, whenever there was some work, we do those projects. Otherwise, sit and play cricket in the office. So that is all that was happening.
So initially, I mean, before even starting Invntree, whatever the experience you had with other companies, during that phase, I mean, at that point in time, right? The kind of clients whom you used to deal with, and what kind of people used to be active? Is it more for the outside India companies, or is it like within India? Because I'm not very sure like how the awareness was at that point in time, like with respect to patents at least.
True. So when I kind of started, the thought process was that the model that most of these outsourcing companies follow, which is to say that, let's say there is a US law firm,
right,
and they want some, let's say, a patent search done, or let's say a patent document to be drafted. We would take up that work and go ahead and do that kind of work, right? So that was the initial thought process. But how it kind of played out was very, very different, right? So most of the work that we did in the initial days was for a lot of Indian companies. It was startups, individuals, and small companies, mostly from India, for whom we were doing these patent consulting work. But at the same time, I think there were, there was work that was coming from outside as well, mainly US.
Okay.
Right. Mainly law firms, patent consulting firms, from the US who had started kind of outsourcing. We kind of happened to reach out to them, and some of them end up started to give out work, right? So that is how we had kind of two streams, one from small and medium-sized companies in India, and then certain outsourced work from the US.
At that time, US, we can definitely understand because IP is quite active in the country from the very beginning.
Yep.
Right. So if you talk about India, right, India, when you said like startups reached out to you and probably some mid and MSME segment, pretty much. Right. So when they reached out to you, I mean, what was the intention? I mean, do they had some knowledge at that point, or like, is it like they were not clear about what it is, just wanted to explore? And also the other question is a follow-up question probably is that, what was their perspective towards a professional like you? I mean, was it like they used to think of you more like a serious lawyer kind of a person, or is it like the awareness with respect to know these people are from engineering background? Is it how was that understanding back then?
That's a good question. See, it's not just back then, even now. When we talk about patents and who are the people who are providing these kind of services,
right?
Most of the startups or individuals think of patent consultants as being lawyers, which again is not true. They are primarily people from technical background with expertise in a specific field of law, and some of them might have gone ahead and also pursued law. Right?
Yeah.
But primarily you will find 90% of them from engineering backgrounds. Even back then, I think that was the same perception in terms of who are the people kind of providing these services, right? I think that awareness has gotten better over a period of time. But even back then, people who were kind of coming to us, I think they were motivated all by themselves. It's not like, so we were going out. They knew
what they are looking
they
for.
knew broadly to say that, okay, now, if I have come up with something new, something improved in technology, there is a way to protect that, and patent is the way to go ahead and do that, right?
Okay.
At that surface level,
they had some knowledge of...
people did have that kind of knowledge.
Okay.
Now that awareness is, I would say, if you can consider 100 companies, if probably today 80% of them would be aware of this surface level details. Maybe back then it's probably like 25% of them would be probably aware, right? So yeah,
I actually remember one incident back then. I mean, when I initially go. There was one call we received at Invntree, and at that point, I think somebody called up our office, and then they were asking like, "Is it patient?" Like, there was this confusion between like whether it is a patent company or is it like a patient,
something to do with
some
patient.
Hospital. I think I remember some vaguely remember that I heard.
We have received calls to ask us if we can help them with some property disputes.
Okay. Intellectual property rights.
Because we are into intellectual property.
They would have thought like we are some real estate people.
I
still find it very difficult to explain it to, a lot of my relatives when to explain them I'm in this field, right? It's very difficult to explain. Now at least it's easier.
Yeah.
Probably when I started at least, and during that first 5-6 years, it was very, very difficult to explain to people what we do. People used to think like, okay, if you say intellectual property, it's difficult to understand. If I say patents, it's even more complicated to understand. So you're an engineer, why are you doing this? Is lawyer's job.
True.
That's what even I thought when I ventured into this, basically.
But that gets me to a question. I told you like how I got into this field.
True.
But how did you get into this field?
So my thing is like never planned. Actually, it's more like a serendipity, I would say.
Yeah.
See, when I kind of finished my masters and then I came back, I have come to India more like a vacation. I've never planned to kind of settle down or something. That was for my cousin's wedding. I have just come for a 1 month vacation. Then later on, I happened to be in Bangalore for just like this just like what you saw. I thought I'll get trained on something, and then go back and find a job there.
Oh, okay.
Because I've finished.
So you wanted to train on something
and just go it. So, but that training was also not very serious, to be
Okay.
honest, at that point. Then I happened to be, I wanted to not be in Hyderabad, just be somewhere else. Bangalore, I thought like is a nice place, I'll chill out, just like what you thought. Okay, so I came here, I took up one course here. And from there, I ended up in your office.
Correct.
After that.
So that was the first job.
That was the first job, actually, right? So that was the first job. So I had no idea what this is.
Correct.
No idea about what the head and tail of IP is.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, fine, it's going well. The vibe is good.
Yeah.
So that's the attitude, nothing beyond that. But I ended up wasting my whole work permit in the UK and settling down in India after that.
But that's quite strange, no? I mean, people
It's actually
will be
strange.
like, no, I want to go to UK. At least back then.
Yeah.
Now you do find people actually even thinking about saying, that, okay, no, do I really want to go stay outside of India? But you kind of decided that, okay, no, I don't want to.
That's nothing. I mean, I have no regrets about it, but I enjoyed the kind of work. I'm quite glad. If not this, maybe I would have ended up being in some software company, most likely. Yes.
Right. I mean,
yeah, obviously.
that's what everybody does. Right?
Yeah. I would have ended up being in some software company, I mean, with the same kind of whatever the people go through. I mean, I don't know how that journey would have been.
Correct.
If I look back now.
Yeah.
But I'm quite happy that I've been in this place because it has, for people who have who are in this industry, probably they would understand this better. If they have stayed in this industry for at least 3-4 years, the kind of exposure you would get is quite different and unique, which is something I don't think you would have if you are into any other space.
True.
Because the kind of way you look at things and you get to speak with people and learn from them, and those people are like the experts in that space.
True.
So that, and it's a very good thing that happened to me is what I mean. That's why I say it's a serendipity, not like...
what happens in this field is that as you become more and more experienced,
right,
the kind of work that you end up doing, so you, from a client point of view, you do consider their business objectives. You have to have a grip on the technology that they are talking about. You need to have a grip on what law can do for them. And you combine all of these things and then end up, doing whatever work that we end up doing, right?
True.
So we actually end up actually taking input from a lot of different discrete aspects of business,
right,
and end up providing services, which again has a profound impact on the company itself. It is a critical operation in a company when we talk about IP protection or patents or patent strategy. So it is unique, but it's just that the size of the industry itself, it cannot be as large as, let's say, a few other industries.
True.
So just like any other niche consulting industry, you will not have tens and thousands of people working in that industry, right?
Yeah.
So similarly, even in patents, you'll not find tens and thousands of people working in the industry, but whosoever is doing it, whatever they're adding, the value that they're adding is as good as any other profession.
Right.
Yeah.
So at that time, I mean, the most of the learning was through work, I believe, like whatever you had,
True.
Right? When you started off and doing all these things. Even the IP, at least the patent side of things with respect to India, were more at a nascent stage and not really that evolved.
Yes.
At that point. What I at least know is that mostly the learning was more for the other countries' laws rather than the Indian laws in itself, I believe, right? Because the work is more for the other countries at that point.
True.
Right? True. So how do you keep up with the Indian things when they are evolved? I mean, when was that? Probably was it a immediate shift which happened, or is it like a slow transition where you probably more steadily fixed into this Indian IP? I mean, how did that journey happen?
So that is again a very interesting journey. See, like I said, we were working with a lot of US law firms,
right,
and even the primary experience that I had was, working for the US market, so to say, right? So as you know, from an IP point of view or from a patent point of view, the US market and how things are done for the US market is very well refined as compared to how things are done for the Indian market,
Right.
And also how a US patent office examines and prosecutes a patent application, again, is very different and much more aggressive, much more nuanced as compared to, let's say, an Indian patent office, right? So that is how things were playing out. Now, because we had this experience catering to the US market, now when you end up bringing that kind of expertise to the Indian market, right? So then we become very uniquely positioned, right? You are now producing very high quality work for the Indian market. Now, traditionally, there were only two types of companies, either doing outsourcing work or they were hardcore Indian law firms, right? Now, the hardcore Indian law firms, at least at some point in time, majority of the work that they were doing was that somebody has filed a patent application, let's say in US or some other country, and that patent was getting filed.
More
in
administrative
India.
work.
Yeah, so it is more like, okay, everything is done, you are just filing
Paperwork.
paperwork into India, right? So that was the expertise with respect to the Indian market. Right. So it was easy for us to kind of come in and actually bring that expertise that we used for the US market and apply it to the Indian market. Then all of a sudden you realize that the kind of work that we are doing for the Indian market is much more superior than what a lot of people might have seen. Right. So that is how we were able to kind of get clients who are local, and then they kind of appreciated how we are dealing with them, because they were probably used to getting dealt with in a very different fashion, right? So we, coming from a pure engineering background, the way we were approaching our clients were very, very different as compared to, let's say, a traditionally established firms in this particular industry, right? Now, in terms of evolution, right? So a lot of things were like, were done or learned not necessarily by referring to somebody else's work. It was more in terms of we imagining, what an ideal work should look like, how certain situations need to be dealt with, so on and so forth. So it was like pretty much learning by ourselves. Of course, there were like a lot of resources in terms of, reading up on, let's say, the law itself, cases, so on and so forth.
So much evolution has happened even in the IP law, right? I mean, starting from that.
So many things have happened. And like I said...
when you started, I think it was, India was not even aligned with the international PCT
No, they just got aligned. 2005 was when, the shift happened.
That was the time when you kind of ventured into it.
Correct.
2005.
So, so like I said earlier, right, we used most of the work that we did was to write a lot of articles. So which means to say that we had to kind of research a lot. So because of that, indirectly we got, thinking about a lot of things, going to depth into a lot of things, and then that is how the expertise actually got built up. Right, and then I think that naturally gets passed on to people working in the company, in the firm.
So, I mean, those initial clients whoever you had from India, I'm talking about. So, do they used to understand the quality standards like at that point? I mean, because if somebody who is probably have filed, if you are talking about a company which has already had filed some patent applications, and the inventors are aware of what level of detail is required, and if they do understand the scope of protection they would get, probably if they have filed a few applications and dealt with some inventions by themselves in the US, and then if they see your work in the US, I'm sure they would understand and appreciate the quality of work which is being delivered. But somebody from India who has probably not had that exposure to patents at that level, how was their response? I mean, do they have a comparison point at that point?
No, right? So it's not just back then, even now, let's say you are working with a company.
Even now we find it very difficult to...
So the question number one is the client who does not have a team which is experienced in patents, can a client like that actually judge your work? That's even back then or even now, I would say it's very difficult for them to differentiate between what's good work, what's average, and not what's poor, right? But at the same time, when you engage with a client, let's say to actually output quality work, the kind of engagement that you have to actually bring out quality work is very, very different.
Okay.
If you have to just, let's say, do something just for the sake of doing it, right? Let's say when we are drafting patent specification, the kind of interaction that happens with the client is much more intense as compared to if the agenda was to just put together a document which is called as a patent document and just go ahead and file it. So what people can appreciate is the effort that kind of goes in.
I think they would see that passion,
the passion and the depth that they are going in, as compared to the depth somebody has gone into when they worked with somebody else previously. Right. So that is how I think they kind of appreciate, okay, there is some quality work that is kind of coming out of it. That's purely from a work point of view.
True.
Then comes always the perception point of view in terms of how are you actually, dealing with a certain client, right? So no matter what we say, from a client point of view, patents is done by lawyers.
Right.
And a lot of people have the perception that, okay, when we talk about pricing, there could be a lot of hidden cost. Right?
That's another thing I wanted to come back.
So that's the perception, right? And they really don't know what this is going to, boil down into in terms of the end expenses that would be incurred.
Right.
In our case, it was like, from the time you kind of, engage with us, it was like, it's always been very upfront in terms of making sure they understand what is the expense that is going to be incurred, what's going to be the fixed expenses, what's going to be the variable. So when they see somebody like that doing it, right, they become much more comfortable, right? So even if you're more expensive, let's say, as long as they know that, okay, they're certain that this is going to be the expense and this guy is actually dealing with me in a fair manner, some people are fine with that.
Okay. So that openness and
absolutely
and fair pricing,
certainty of
setting
pricing,
up the expectations.
Setting up the expectations.
Expectations, right, has been the key.
Is what I mean, if you are going to be a flyby kind of an operator, you can do whatever.
Right.
So that is why a lot of good established companies do not work with freelancers.
Right.
The reason being that, okay, patenting process, even if you just consider one patent, itself can be at best a year's journey. And if you are talking about a typical situation, you're talking about 2.5 or a 3-year journey. That's for one patent.
Yeah, back then it used to be even 7-8 years.
It could be, right? So,
yeah.
And if you're now talking about a portfolio, right? I mean, I cannot be talking to a person who is going to be there today and not going to be picking up calls tomorrow, right? So when company looks at a portfolio and, aligning all the activities based on their business objectives, that is when they say that, okay, now we need to be working with somebody professional who kind of is committed to the cause, is reachable, right, whenever there is a need. That is all the things that kind of go into when somebody is making a decision.
Also, I mean, when you talk about pricing and all these points, right? I mean, around that financial points. So, back then, I mean, if you talk about, not back then, I mean, even relevant today, I think. So, when we talk about at least corporates and if you talk about MSME segment, in your experience, whatever you have seen with these different companies, how do you think the budgeting works for them? Like, I mean, do they have, what kind of companies you have seen? Like, do they have a typical budget? Like, see, this is what we plan to. And what goes into that thing, or what do you think from there? Probably, I would also like to know, like, what are your thoughts on what it should be ideally, how it should be thought of, like.
Right. See, if we are talking about large companies, of course they have their budgeting.
True.
For something.
They have
like
their in-house team.
They have their in-house IP teams. They have their budgeting. They have an objective.
Very clearly defined for them.
Why are we doing whatever we are doing? Right. So that's clearly aligned in a lot of very large companies, but that does not necessarily mean that all large companies have that.
Very true.
Right?
Yeah. Depends on the industries, I guess, right? Am I right?
Depends on the industries. How, for example, if I'm talking about telecommunication, if I'm talking about pharmaceuticals, right?
Yeah.
So all these are, I would say, IP-heavy businesses, right?
True.
If you don't do things, then probably you're going to be washed out.
Yeah.
You're going to be,
sooner or later.
Sooner or later something is going to happen. Something that's terribly wrong is going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, when I talk about smaller companies or mid-sized companies or even large companies which do not have that kind of a clear thought process, I would say many a times it is reactive in nature. All these IP activities, at least from an Indian point of view, right? In the sense that somebody has threatened them in, let's say, a market outside of India or even in India, and then that is when they realize that, okay, hey, even we need to be having, protecting our inventions, and we have been doing, small improvements. Even we need to be aggressive on protecting them, because that eventually is going to have a business impact.
Right.
Now, if you're talking about, let's say, a small company or a mid-sized company, see, how do you end up surviving or even scaling? There are only a few ways of doing it. One is probably you are cheaper, right? Or you are providing some kind of a better value, right, compared to somebody else. Now, if your proposition is purely based on me being cheaper, then obviously there is going to be somebody else who is going to come in, who is much more hungry compared to you, and then they're going to be beating you in your own game by being much more cheaper, right? So the only other way, if you want to be playing the longer game, is to actually provide value, right? Now, how do you provide value? You provide value by making improvements. If we are talking about technology companies, we are talking about technical improvements, right? Now, yes, if you make technical improvements, obviously you're going to be providing value to your end client, and you'll be able to, let's say, maintain good margins, so on and so forth. Now, is it sufficient if you just innovate and maintain, give that differentiation? Because somebody is going to, understand what your innovation is, and then they're probably going to be reverse engineering or bringing in the same features, right? So there has to be a way of protecting it,
right?
Now, how do I end up doing that? You now think about patents and a few other things, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just about innovation, but it's also about protection. So a lot of companies seem to think that, okay, this is an area which is an expense, right? Or let's say they think that, okay, it's something that we should probably be doing, but it's only few companies that they realize
of a FOMO that
a lot others are doing it. Let me also. But a lot of people kind of end up not realizing that it's a necessity.
True.
Right? It's only when people start, companies that see that this is a necessity, not necessarily a cost center, it is actually a profit center. That is when people start getting involved. And of course, there are a lot of companies, even from an inception point of view, right? I mean, even from the time they start, they are very clear. Okay. In terms of what patent portfolio strategy should look like, and so on and so forth. At the same time, there could be a 50 or a 60-year-old company which still does not
have a clue about
about it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So at that point, I mean, going back to the same question.
Yeah.
In that case, I'm sure, like, if somebody, the lot who knows exactly why they are doing this, or the objectives have been clearly defined for pursuing these patents, and also they have a fair understanding of what a patent portfolio is.
Correct.
Rather than just talking about, I have a patent on one product, which, I mean, a lot of people tend to lose out or lack the understanding or knowledge that there could be several patents which could be covering one particular product, which they are trying to protect, right? So, for people who know this, probably they have a fair understanding of how to budget these things and work towards it, and probably they would reach out to a few people who could help them within their budgets, whatever, right? what about the other people who probably come with not much understanding, but probably somebody would have just told them, like, see, there is something called patent. If you have this, probably there is some good which is going to happen.
Yeah.
But not much understanding of what it is, right? So, how do they go about generally budgeting it? Probably from the, I mean, if you talk about over the years, I'm just talking about it.
Yeah.
You may find the similar kind of people even today. Probably the percentage may vary.
Correct.
Here and there, I mean, depending on, I mean, the people who are aware of these things.
Yeah.
So how do they look at this whole budgeting? I mean, when you talk about the management,
Yeah.
who don't have access to a in-house some CS or some kind of a CA or IP in-house counsel is a far-fetched thought, I believe.
Correct.
At least for an MSME.
Yeah.
That's where probably consultants help them, right?
Correct.
I mean, so how would they look at it initially, at least when the CXO people,
Correct.
Level people talk about this?
See, now if we were to say that, there is something called as patents,
Right.
and certain things need to be done.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be completely outsourcing it. And I actually have no clue whatsoever what this thing is all about, how it can play out. If that were to be the thought process at a CXO level, that just won't work. To say that, I would essentially say that somebody at a CXO level need to understand, at least at a surface level, as to how this ecosystem actually works. Right? So that understanding, I would say, is mandatory in any company, at least for one person who is at a senior level, right? Because that person understands several other things about the business objectives, so on and so forth, and also understands how this ecosystem, the patent ecosystem, actually has a role to play in this entire business of theirs. And unless somebody like that is driving that initiative, nothing is going to happen. You cannot expect a junior level person to kind of come in and say that, okay, we will do something of this nature, and everybody falling in line to actually go ahead and do something like this, right? So that's one. Now, when it comes to budgeting and things like that, see, again, depends on what kind of a business a person is in, and what kind of, I would say, competitive advantage they want to gain, defines what their budget is going to be, right? So in the sense that a company can go all out and build a huge patent portfolio, and only 30 or 40% of that portfolio actually has a business impact, right? But they end up building that 100% of that portfolio because it's very difficult to anticipate which 30% or which 40% of my patents will actually have a business impact.
Right.
So from that point of view, one should, if you have a marketing budget, if you have a sales budget, you should have a budget on IP or patents if you are in the technical space. Otherwise, there is a huge functional area which you are just skipping. Somebody else is going to come in and pose a lot of threat going forward. So that is how I kind of see.
I mean, what kind of experience, I mean, as a follow-up question, just because you said like once they miss out on this opportunity or something, they come at a later reactive.
Correct.
It's more reactive is what I think the word you use.
Yeah.
Right. So can you share any experiences like that where it's more like after they have burned their fingers, coming back and asking for help or anything which we could do? I mean, any experience with respect to Indian companies as such, like?
Absolutely. I mean, many such experiences without really taking names.
Yeah, of course,
right. So we have like fairly large companies who have kind of released their products into the market, and let's say they go ahead and try to export it, let's say, into the US market.
Okay.
Right. And somebody who is importing into the US market says that, okay, please go and get me a freedom to operate report, right? That is the first time they are hearing that, okay, there is something called as freedom to operate. What is this thing all about? And that is when their first realization comes in that, okay, if I have to like play into the US market, there is something called as patents, and my product needs to be such that I'm not infringing on somebody else's patents, and that is when they start thinking, right? And let's say somebody has already launched, they get sued.
Yeah.
And then they come back and they're like, we are getting sued because apparently my product infringes on somebody else's patents over there, and they want to kind of work on the product and see what will not infringe, so on and so forth. So likewise, we have situations wherein they have a very innovative product, they already launched it into the market, and after 3-4 years somebody started copying it, and then they come back and say that, okay, we were actually the first ones to do it, and this person is copying it. Can I now go ahead and stop it? I mean, absolutely you cannot. You should have applied for a patent before you launched your product, right? So there have been like plenty of situations. At the same time, there are like plenty of situations wherein they've gone ahead and applied for a patent, gotten a patent, and somebody kind of tries to come in. All that is done is you send a cease and desist letter saying that I do have a patent, right? Now for that other competitor to work around something like that, it's going to be taking years.
True.
If they are committed.
Yeah.
Most of them, just saying that, okay, we have a patent, and this is how looks like this is how you are infringing on my patent, and you should stop doing it. That's sufficient to actually push competitors back. So it kind of plays out in both directions.
Yeah. So this is one kind of a scenario where probably they would have realized when they are trying to export
Correct.
Their products.
Yeah.
Where probably somebody else has already protected themselves in those countries, right? So if you talk about like probably this space where like probably there are quite a few different sectors, like if you are active sectors like textiles is one sector which has been quite active in India. If you talk about even before, right? Even today, I mean, we have a fair share of few production, textile production and other things, right? So that space, or probably if you talk about any other mining activities in that space or any other sectors there, right? So in these traditional sectors, I mean, have there been instances, I mean, like let's say they have really innovated something, got it, but they have no idea about all these things. They would have launched the product, and then comes the competitor who is kind of shooting them here, launching some counterfeits, right? The realization there, I mean, a lot of usually queries which come even today, I mean, which a lot of the IP consultants go through even today is like a lot of people come there at that point. So what would your suggestion to those people would be? Like, because I mean, if somebody has to think about IP, let's say who is in the MSME segment, there are companies at different stages.
Right.
If you talk about companies, probably they've been in this space for about some 10-20 years. There could be some companies who have just ventured into that space, right? And there are companies who have been probably somewhere in between, right? Whatever. Right? So how should each of these companies think about IP if they want to have some protection for their services and products, whatever they're kind of building, right? What should be their first probably 3 questions which they should ask themselves, maybe? If you
right. So I would say that broadly comes in terms of a company setting out their business objectives to say that how am I going to compete in this market, right? Am I going to compete purely based on pricing? Am I going to maintain good margins, and am I going to compete based on innovation, right? Or is it an industry wherein I can establish monopolies, right? Monopolies can be established by different means. Monopolies can be established because you are in a sector wherein it's purely based on licenses. If you are able to get a license, nobody else will be able to operate. And monopolies can be set by protecting technology as well, right? So at the very beginning,
one example, just for everybody's understanding, like probably if you talk about licensing, we are talking about more like the country
the government licensing. Yeah, right.
You want to start a telecom company. It's not that
absolutely
easiest
right
thing to do.
Let's say I want to
regulations.
do some mining. I'm into the mining business.
There's so many regulations which
correct,
you have to
right? Maybe if you are a purely into the mining business, you are not an engineering company. You're a mining business company wherein the business runs because you were able to get a government license to mine a particular place, right? So maybe that's IP does not even, at least patents do not even play a role. But for everybody else, wherein you cannot establish monopolies based on government licenses, and there is some aspect of technology, and you're playing the game based on technology, right? You will have to think about how do we, innovate and how do we protect that innovation, right? So that thought process has to be from top down, right? And for somebody to even consider that, okay, this patent is one functional area that should come in my entire strategy for business, somebody who is a key decision maker should have some understanding of saying that, okay, there is an ecosystem like this, and broadly, this is how this patent system kind of plays out, right? So as long as that is clear, right, you have plenty of people to kind of help you, right? You have patent consultant, so on and so forth. That is a different journey altogether. But as long as at a company mindset level, you kind of acknowledge that this is an area where I can actually leverage. Once that is set, I think everything else will fall into place. Maybe there'll be instances wherein the first few instances you may not really get right, but you are there for the long run. So eventually you'll get it right.
Right. So I think, having said that, I mean, whatever you just said, even for the licensing, heavy licensing oriented businesses, even for them, if they want to be competitive in the international level, probably these licensings are probably not seeking licenses or getting licenses for those sectors may not be as stringent in every country.
True.
Right? I mean, the complexity kind of varies. So even for those traditional companies who have been actively involved in this mining or other related areas, even for them to be competitive, it is very essential for them to also protect their IP.
No, what you're saying is true. That depends on the aspiration of the company also, right? So let's say I am a pure mining company or a refining company, and I come up with certain processes or technologies wherein the throughput or let's say the yield that I get is much better as compared to somebody else. So because you have that technology and you are able to protect that technology, you might be able to bid better.
True.
Because you have a competitive edge, because of which you probably has a better result on your profits. So yes, so even they can do that, but really depends on what's the aspiration of the of that company itself. How do they perceive themselves? What is the future that they think for themselves?
In a way, to sum it up, I mean, IP, not just patents, but also all forms of IP, which are at least at a larger extent, we are talking about trademarks, copyrights, and designs, any designs which they may have, along with patents, right? So all these things should be looked upon as more like an investment and assets, rather than a liability and an administrative cost.
Absolutely.
Basically, that's the thought process which everybody should approach the IP budgeting when they venture into any kind of a business beforehand, and having a consultant coming in probably at the very beginning.
I mean, think of any large company, right? Think of your Google, Microsoft, Facebook, any large company. I mean, they have invested heavily on patents. They have huge patent portfolios. So even if you were to consider that, okay, I'll just play by the playbook of a large successful technology company, that is what these people have done. So if you are going to be ignoring it, it's going to be only affecting you.
So the examples are right in front of our eyes, but a lot of people fail to understand how they have been sustaining the growth. Consistency.
I mean, you cannot be scaling and growing and becoming more profitable by saving.
True.
You can only be doing that by creating barriers for
Taking those extra additional risks and making sure those risks are being protected.
Correct. That's right.
That's
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Okay, having said that now, I mean, if we get back to your journey, okay, we have been talking a lot about the patent side of things.
Yeah.
So if we come back to your journey of being in this field for almost 20 years and all, and being an entrepreneur, that journey with Invntree, I think it's about 15 years close to?
Yeah, 15 years now.
Roughly about 15 years?
Yeah, roughly about 15 years.
15 years. So that's a long journey, I think, given the kind of things which we speak of.
True.
Companies today, right? So how has this whole journey been, and what are the different challenges which you have faced, and how was your thought process evolving over these years, and the maturity level of course that also kind of grows along this line, right?
Absolutely. I think you know, like what you pointed out, right? That maturity level is something that kind of evolves over a period of time,
Right.
And that's also a factor of what you are exposed to, and like I was talking about, what is the aspiration of companies, right?
Yeah.
So also, what we do and what we end up doing also kind of is defined by, what's the aspiration that we kind of set for ourselves.
True.
And that's not a constant, right? So probably when I kind of started out, the aspiration that probably I set out for, let's say, for myself or the company might have been very, very different as compared to what it is right now, right? And what it is right now, again, is a factor of what kind of people I am getting exposed to, what kind of communities I am getting exposed to, right? Who is inspiring me, right? So all of those things kind of shape up, what those aspirations are, and then it kind of boils down to, how we kind of conduct ourselves, what's the company strategy, what kind of people we hire, so on and so forth, right? So at least in the initial phases, maybe it feels like, getting a client, getting a project, that is the challenge. But over a period of time, although, many people probably think that, let's say, a job of an HR or job of a recruiter
True.
is probably not really looked up as such.
True.
Probably, but I think that I have the greatest respect for them, because the key challenge for me is hiring the right kind of people, right?
Yeah.
And if you get that right, I think you would have probably done 50 to 60% of your job. And having hired the right kind of people, and if you probably get the environment right and have a direction for them, probably you have done close to another 30%. So that's about 80% of your job done, right? So for me, the key, I would say the main work is to actually have the right kind of people in the team, giving them the opportunity to kind of explore themselves, and also aligning their efforts towards a certain goal, and putting together processes so that everybody is kind of aligned towards a certain goal. I think that's the majority of the work, and that's where all the challenges that kind of come in. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't get it right? So that is what I feel is not just my challenge. I think anybody who is looking at scaling, I think getting the right kind of people and making sure that the environment is right and everybody is kind of aligned towards that goal. That's a key challenge for anybody, I feel.
I think anybody who is an entrepreneur, I think, would probably relate to these problems, I think.
Absolutely.
Because finding the right team and then making sure that everybody is aligned with that whole goal of what they are trying to achieve, and having the trust on those people. I think that's at the core of any team, whatever they kind of do going forward.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, this kind of understanding, when you said like this has come over the years after seeing a lot of problems and stuff, which you have seen through because you started your journey at a very engaged, right? At this point, we see a lot of people starting up things quite early. But back then, it was not that thing. I mean, once you kind of start up something, you expect it to be at least about having some gray hair. Got it? Then venturing into starting off something, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, how was your mindset? I mean, how did you think of the company? Now, this is the mindset you have. Like, what were the challenges then when you are not aware of probably or not had a solid idea of this should be the primary objective?
Yeah, I think, see, when I started out, I mean, instead of glorifying things, I think purely it was a monetary objective to say that, okay, what are the chances that, a venture would probably earn me more money as compared to a job? I kind of said that, okay, it's worth taking a bet. So purely monetary in nature, right? But over a period of time, that kind of has evolved. Say that, okay, it's not purely monetary. There are other aspects to it in terms of, okay, what's the legacy? What's the brand? How do people pursue this particular brand and all of that? Having said that, what I also feel is that, at least having had this journey and also having seen how people are kind of pursuing entrepreneurship, right? It's as if made out as if it is something very heroic to say, to do that. I really don't think, one needs to kind of pursue entrepreneurship that way. There is nothing like heroic about it, right? So each person needs to kind of decide what's their objective in life. Let's say the objective in life is to be happy. If that were to be the objective, then probably what is needed for happiness is, let's say, some amount of money, right? Probably good health and, let's say, good relationships, right? So if that were to be the objective, I mean, you need not go and, pursue entrepreneurship, put yourself in stress. There are well-paying jobs, right? I know, why do you even want to do all of these things, right? They're well-paying jobs and you can pretty much balance out everything. So, if somebody feels that urge to do it, it is their urge. They went ahead and did it. That's all right. Nothing heroic as compared to, let's say, somebody else working, because each person has their own objective and then they should pursue that objective. Entrepreneurship itself is not the objective, is what I feel. Yeah,
it's not for the sake of having the tag as
exactly. I mean, people are making it out that way. That okay, only if you were to start a company, you have done something good. Otherwise,
True.
Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, that I think you had it from the very beginning, I believe. Like, I mean, if you have started at that point, like thinking, like, I want to try this something. And I don't see it dying even today because you're still pursuing different ventures.
True.
Even at this point of time. So, probably that's more of an innate quality.
That's all.
It's not really something which you could inherit or something, is what I feel.
I mean, probably if that's your calling, you go ahead and do it. And not because it has become very fancy to be doing that.
Okay.
Right? Nice. But at the same time, I think a lot of people at this point in time, in their, you have a whole generation of people wherein their parents have done well.
True.
They have built that safety net
for them,
and all of that. So, probably the risk is less. So if you have that urge, I think because of the safety net, I think a lot of people can actually go ahead and do that and pursue their passion. But at the same time, not doing or starting a company, that's also still fine.
I think, that's right. I think, also, I mean, the whole society is more accepting at this point.
True.
Compared to how it used to be back then. I think the whole society has evolved to accepting that entrepreneurial journey as one of the career paths.
Correct.
And even failure there is not something which is looked down. And getting back to job again is also not something which is very difficult, which is
as compared to what it was
supposed
before,
to be, like what have you done before and all that. So I mean that's quite encouraging in a way. The what the change has brought over in the society in a large sense. I think that's one of the interesting changes I think I personally see in that sense. Right. Yeah. Whatever the journey you had so far, I mean, whatever we spoke of, and
Yeah.
after that, what do you think? What are your objectives going forward? Like with with respect to maybe Invntree or your personal journey. I mean,
Yeah.
do you want to probably take up other things which are interesting to you while keeping tabs at the same IP?
Right.
And how do you see that?
See, from an inventory point of view, like you already know,
Yeah.
our whole goal as of now is to kind of build a team, starting from leadership team to mid-level, and have great talent across the organization, so that it becomes a self-sustaining organization. Put across processes so that it becomes an organization also needs to innovate, even though we are in pure services business, right? So that is what my whole objective right now is. So as part of that, like, you worked with Invntree before, you had other roles in different companies, then eventually you again came back to Invntree, you are heading our patent division. So you essentially are the leadership team in terms of, a majority of our practice. So all I'm trying to do is that put together a good team, and then we have been fairly successful in doing that, so that Invntree kind of continues to deliver the kind of work that we've been known for in terms of a quality and all of that. So that's happening with Invntree. Apart from that, like, I run another company called Canman, which is more of a technology company into the D2C space. That company is now very nascent. Right?
Yeah.
Now, some of my time is actually going into that company, and I need to see, just like any other venture.
That's at the initial stage
You basically hope for the best and do your best as much as you can, and see what it turns out to be.
How difficult it is? Jumping
very
between
difficult.
Multiple ships, like
I-
managing time there.
I think gets. No, I don't think it's difficult, so to say, in terms of work itself, but it can be stressful, right? So it's all about. I feel it's more about managing stress than to do with the amount of work that has to go into it. That's easy, but let's say if you're talking about a new venture, there'll be lots of ups and downs,
Right.
which can be very stressful. So it's more about managing stress than to do with any hard work or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's going quite well, I believe, both sides.
Rocky.
Huh?
You cannot say it is. Inventory is going quite well.
Quite well,
So
because
that's a
it's
good
kind of
thing.
an established
Yeah,
thing.
but the other company, yes, it's still a growing company. There are quite a lot of challenges. So we are trying to overcome those challenges pretty much on a daily basis.
Okay.
Yeah.
I still hope that you will have that same hustle kind of thing going on.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, I believe. So about Invntree again, the company which is already established anyways, and it's been doing well for over the years. What are your plans for Invntree? I think what are the general problems which are being faced, and coming to your role with Invntree, what is that you are trying to keep pace set with at this point?
See, as such, in the field, among the players who are there, we have a fairly good name in terms of the quality of our work. Now, the whole idea, and then we have a pretty established team delivering the kind of quality that we are delivering. At the same time, one of the key challenges is to add to that team and ensure that whomsoever we add kind of meet those kind of standards, so that we can deliver whatever we are delivering. And the future is that we want to be kind of recognized as at least one of the top 3 patent consulting firms in India, and all that needs to be done to achieve that. I think the whole vision and the whole effort is around that, right? And that's, I'm fairly confident that at the pace at which we are going, the kind of things that we are doing, I think this will be done in the near future.
Fine. So, I mean, other things. I mean, there are a lot of things which have been changing over the years. Maybe with respect to IP regime, or also with respect to the global order of things.
Yeah.
Right. Recently, I mean, there've been a lot of uproar and a lot of uncertainty, which is kind of flowing in the entire economy of the world. Right. So. How is that affecting the business as of now in all the sorts of businesses which you are exposed to? I mean, what is your perspective of how things are going?
Let's say I've been doing patent consulting for the last 20 years.
Right.
There have been so many events, right, which probably is not favorable to business as such. And there is always going to be ups and downs. So whatever even happens today, it is again in if you were to think about it from a holistic long journey point of view, there will be ups and downs for all the events that keep on happening. So I don't think from a company's point of view we kind of change strategies and things like that to kind of deal with some very short-lived immediate actions that certain countries might be taking, right? For example, let's say we do a lot of services in the US,
right?
And we have a huge clientele from China and a few other countries, right? So momentarily, I think people might pause to say, okay, do I want to file patent applications in the US? So which means to say that we might have an impact on our business because we represent a huge clientele there. Now, although that is momentary, that does not mean that that doesn't mean that we stop building our capabilities to cater to the US market. We continue doing that because even this phase will pass.
True.
Yeah.
I think it's more like another COVID kind of a situation which has happened.
Absolutely, right? We got past COVID, so
COVID we did very well, I believe.
We did absolutely well. We were like really scared, but we did absolutely great during COVID.
Yes. So I mean, all that said, I mean, when we talk about IP and patents, at least, I kind of carry one phrase which was said in a very funnier way during my initial days. Like every field may have recession, but the IP patents may never have recession because innovation never stops.
Yeah,
that's what people always have said. That has been true so far.
Yes,
I've not seen any change in that thing. What do you think?
There could be some changes.
Is it
in the patent consulting field? I feel not because of some
global state of order.
Yeah, not because of the global state of order, but more so in terms of technology and all of that.
Oh, that leads to me a very interesting question, Raya. Follow-up question. I think I know the answer for this because anyways, we are also part of the whole journey.
Right.
So we've been trying a lot of new things.
Right.
Both in-house and also adapting to new technologies which have been upcoming.
Yes.
In the space of AI and a lot of services have been a lot of things which have been playing out well.
Correct.
In the sense like becoming efficient and these things.
Yeah. So like I said, we were preaching about other companies to be innovative and all of that. So when innovation kind of starts hitting our market, we cannot be sitting there saying that, okay, we'll somehow manage.
Yeah.
We should be at the forefront of that innovation as well. And even though we are a consulting firm, we have been taking initiatives which even everybody will get to know of, wherein we are adopting these technologies to do whatever we are doing more efficiently and doing a better job at it, so on and so forth, right? So I feel the progress in technology is going to have an impact on how we deliver our consulting services to our end client.
Good to hear that. And on that high note, I would probably like to call it an end for this podcast. And thanks for taking out time in your busy schedule for this podcast. I know I have pulled you into this to some extent. So I hope to see you again. Probably we'll do this again. But before kind of wrapping it up, I wanted to have a small feedback on this because this is also my first time doing something like this. Okay, so this is more of an impromptu thing how we did the overall conversation. So anything for me basically on that.
Always a pleasure talking to you, Pradeep. So at the end of the day, this is just a conversation that we had, which we typically anyway end up having in our office, right?
Yeah.
On so many different topics. It's just that we have a camera in front of us.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think it's been a casual discussion. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Anybody whom you would like to recommend for probably this series of episodes upcoming?
I feel that there are a lot of people within the industry who can give a lot of insights.
Okay.
Especially a lot of colleagues and friends in the IP fraternity working in companies, large companies.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we'll get them as well, and you can probably talk to them, get different perspectives. So that at the end of the day, whoever is our viewer can benefit from it, because it's high time that this kind of expertise, which is lying with a very small set of people, actually kind of comes out, and this itself can benefit a lot of people. Make them think that use innovation and protecting of innovation as a strategy to grow their business.
True.
Not just in India, even outside of India.
True. That's the whole objective been when we thought of even starting off this thing, when we discussed this initially. So going forward, I think, we would probably leverage that knowledge.
Yes.
With a lot of experts speaking about those things, which would be probably, I hope it should be quite a learning to a lot of people from MSMEs and also corporates who had not fair understanding of IP as such, and taken something back for them to think about and implementing in their own companies.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.